You were seriously going to get in a car with a complete stranger? The text from my roommate, Vanessa, flashed on my phone screen just as I slid into the passenger seat of a beat-up Ford pickup. Rain pounded against the windshield, my soaked cotton blouse clinging to my skin like a desperate lover. The stormy weather matched my day perfectly, fired from my job, drenched by an unexpected downpour, and now accepting a ride from a man I'd known for approximately 90 seconds. But something about his eyes, kind, crinkled at the corners, a startling shade of blue against his tanned skin, told me he wasn't an axe murderer. At least I hope not. "I promise I am not as sketchy as this truck suggests," he said. His voice warm like honey over gravel. He extended a calloused hand. Joseph Wilson." I hesitated for just a moment before shaking it. "Linda Rodriguez, and thank you for stopping. The bus wasn't coming for another hour." "No woman should stand in the rain for an hour in San Antonio," he replied, shifting the truck into gear. "Where to?" As I gave him directions to my apartment complex on the east side of town, I studied him from the corner of my eye. Worn jeans, a simple grey t-shirt that had seen better days, and work boots covered in what looked like garden soil. His dark hair was slightly too long, curling at the nape of his neck, and a shadow of stubble lined his jaw. Not exactly the picture of danger, but still, Vanessa would kill me if she knew. "So, rough day?" he asked, nodding toward my soaked appearance. I laughed, the sound surprisingly genuine after the day I had. "You could say that. Got fired, phone died, caught in a flash flood. The universe is really going for a hat trick." "Fired? That is rough. What did you do?" "Marketing assistant at Glow Cosmetics," I said, feeling the sting of rejection all over again. "Apparently, suggesting that their new skincare line might cause allergic reactions in some users wasn't on brand, even though I had the data to prove it." Something flickered across Joseph's face. Surprise, maybe recognition, but it disappeared so quickly I thought I imagined it. Integrity over brand. "I like that," he said quietly. We fell into comfortable silence for a few minutes, the only sounds being the rain against the roof and the windshield wipers' rhythmic swish. I found myself studying his hands on the steering wheel, strong, capable hands that looked like they worked for a living. "What about you?" I asked. "What do you do when you're not rescuing stranded women?" He chuckled, a deep sound that did strange things to my stomach. "A little bit of everything. Gardening mostly. I like working with my hands." He flexed his fingers against the wheel. And there was something honest about coaxing things to grow. "A philosopher gardener," I teased. "Thoreau would be proud." Joseph's eyes lit up. "You've read Thoreau?" "English minor in college. Had to read Walden 3 times. I smiled, thinking of my dog-eared copy at home. Some of it stuck. He gave me a look I couldn't quite decipher, surprised but pleased, as if I'd revealed something unexpected about myself. Before he could respond, his phone rang, the sound filling the small space of the truck cab. He glanced at it, frowned, then declined the call. "Important?" I asked. "Oh, do nothing that can wait," he said, but something in his tone had changed, tightened. As we approached my apartment complex, the rain began to ease. Joseph pulled up to the entrance, putting the truck in park. "Thanks again," I said, suddenly. Awkward. I don't know what I would have done if you hadn't stopped. "Gotten very wet?" he suggested with a smile. I laughed. "Wetter than this? I am practically dripping on your upholstery. Trust me, this truck has seen worse." His eyes held mine for a moment too long, and something electric passed between us. I broke eye contact first, grabbing my bag. "Well, goodbye then. And thanks." As I stepped out of the truck, he called after me. "Linda." I turned back. "Be careful who you accept rides from in the future. Not everyone has good intentions." I smiled. Are you saying you do? His answering grin made my heart skip. I guess you'll never know, he said. And then he was gone, the old truck rumbling away into the clearing evening. Little did I know that I would see Joseph Wilson again, and that when I did, nothing would be as it seemed, least of all the, man himself. 3 weeks after my impromptu ride with the mysterious gardener, life had achieved a new, if precarious, balance. I'd found a temporary position at a local coffee shop while sending out applications for marketing jobs, and my roommate, Vanessa, had finally stopped lecturing me about getting into strange men's vehicles. The memory of Joseph Wilson had faded to a pleasant anecdote, the kind of story you tell at parties when everyone shares their craziest thing I've ever done moments. Until Saturday morning, when I found myself at the Pearl Farmers Market, shopping for flowers to brighten our apartment. The sunset calla lilies are particularly beautiful today, a familiar voice said from behind me as I hovered indecisively over a bucket of vibrant blooms. I spun around so quickly I nearly knocked over a nearby display. There he stood, Joseph Wilson, looking remarkably different from the rain-soaked afternoon when he'd given me a ride. His jeans were still worn but clean, his t-shirt replaced by a fitted button-down with rolled sleeves that revealed tanned forearms. His hair was slightly trimmed, the stubble on his jaw groomed into a short beard that somehow made his blue eyes even more striking. "You," I managed, eloquent as ever. His smile was slow, spreading across his face like butter on warm toast. Me, hello again, Linda Rodriguez. You remember my name. Hard to forget the woman who quoted Thoreau while dripping rainwater all over my truck. He stepped closer, examining the flowers beside me. But you, significantly drier. Today it's a good look. I felt warmth creep up my neck. What are you doing here? Same as you, I imagine. Shopping. He gestured to the flowers. Though I come every Saturday, you renew. Our apartment needed some life, I explained, trying to get my bearings. Was it normal to feel this flustered around someone who was essentially a stranger? But I don't really know anything about flowers. Well, you in luck, Joseph said, moving to stand beside me. Flowers happen to be a specialty of mine. Over the next 30 minutes, Joseph guided me through the market, explaining the difference between lilies and dahlias, why certain blooms lasted longer than others, and which combinations would create the best arrangements. His knowledge was impressive, his passion evident in the way his hands moved as he spoke, fingers brushing petals with a gentleness that made something flutter in my chest. So how does a gardener know so much about cut flowers? I asked, as we waited for the vendor to wrap my final selection, a mix of sunset callus, blue delphiniums, and creamy white roses that Joseph swore would make any room feel alive. Something flashed in his eyes, that same guarded look I'd glimpsed in the truck. I told you I do a bit of everything, he said lightly. Besides, plants are plants, whether they in the ground or in a vase. Before I could press further, a sharp Wilson cut through the market chatter. We both turned to see a well-dressed man in his 50s striding purposefully toward us, his expression a mix of surprise and, was that disapproval? Joseph's posture changed instantly, shoulders squaring, jaw tightening. Richard, he acknowledged, his voice suddenly formal. The man called Richard looked between us, his gaze calculating. Didn't expect to see you here. Thought you to be at the... He paused, eyes flicking to me. Meeting! Rescheduled, Joseph said tersely. An awkward silence fell. I shifted the flowers in my arms, feeling distinctly like I'd wandered into a private conversation. I should go, I murmured. Thank you for the help with the flowers, Joseph. Joseph turned to me, his expression softening immediately. Wait, he said, let me at least carry these to your car. Richard. His eyebrows shot up, but he stepped back, I'll leave you to it then, but don't forget dinner tonight. Your brother S in town. His emphasis on brother carried a weight I didn't understand. Joseph nodded curtly. Once Richard was out of earshot, he released a breath, shoulders dropping. Sorry about that. Friend of yours? I asked carefully. Family business? Associate, he replied, his tone making it clear he didn't want to elaborate. He took the wrapped flowers from my arms. Now where is your car? I bit my lip. I actually walked. It was only a few blocks to my apartment. His face brightened. Then I'll walk you home. This was how I found myself strolling through San Antonio, a Saturday morning bustle, with Joseph Wilson, his arms full of flowers, talking as easily as if we'd known each other for years instead of hours accumulated across 2 chance meetings. He told me about his rescue dog, a one-eyed pit bull named Patch, who'd been abandoned at a construction site. I shared stories about living with Vanessa, who was studying to be a veterinarian and occasionally brought her work home in the form of orphaned baby squirrels. When we reached my apartment building, Joseph handed over the flowers with a reluctance. I felt mirrored in my own chest. Thank you, I said, burying my nose in the blooms to hide my flushed cheeks. For the flowers and the company. Joseph hesitated, hand rubbing the back of his neck. Linda, I know this might seem forward, but would you like to have dinner sometime? With me, I mean. My heart leaped, but caution held me back. I don't even know your last name, I hedged, though we both knew he'd already told me. Wilson, he supplied with a grin. Joseph Wilson, gardener, amateur flower expert, and owner of a one-eyed dog who snores louder than an airplane. Taking off, I laughed. Well, when you put it that way, how could I refuse? We exchanged numbers and he promised to text me about dinner options. As he turned to leave, I called after him, echoing his words from weeks before. Joseph. He turned back, eyebrow raised. Be careful who you accept dinner invitations from. Not everyone has good intentions. His laugh followed me all the way up to the 3rd floor. It wasn't tea until I was arranging the flowers in a vase that I realized I'd never told him what. I did after losing my job at Glow Cosmetics, yet he hadn't asked, almost as if he already knew. The thought should have troubled me more than it did. You were telling me, Vanessa said, sprawled dramatically across our couch, that Flower Market guy is the same as Rainstorm Rescue guy, and now you're having dinner with him? She popped a grape into her mouth. That is either the cutest meet cute ever or the beginning of a true crime documentary. I rolled my eyes, surveying my reflection in the full-length mirror. It's just dinner, Nessa. At Bistro Vatel. She whistled low. That's not just dinner. That I've been planning to impress you. Dinner. Gardeners? A Don DT typically dropped $200 on pasta, Linda. Her words echoed my own nagging doubts. In the weeks since our flower market encounter, Joseph and I had exchanged increasingly lengthy text messages, building a rapport that felt both exhilarating and comfortable. But questions lingered. The way that man Richard had looked at him, the sudden formality in Joseph's demeanor, the fact that he never went into detail about his work beyond vague mentions of projects and clients. Maybe he is really good at gardening, I offered lamely, smoothing the fabric of my navy blue dress. Vanessa snorted. Yeah, and maybe I am secretly a unicorn scientist. She sat up, suddenly serious. Just be careful, okay? And text me his license plate number before you get in his car. Yes, Mom, I teased, but I appreciated her concern. When the doorbell rang 30 minutes later, Vanessa beat me to it, throwing it open with all the subtlety of a hurricane. Ooh, well, hello there, Joseph Wilson, she drawled, looking him up and down. I hurried to the door, ready to drag her away, but stopped short at the sight of him. Joseph stood in our doorway wearing a tailored charcoal suit that transformed him. From ruggedly handsome to devastatingly elegant. His hair was neatly styled, his beard trimmed to precision. The only familiar elements were his eyes, still that incredible blue, and the slightly nervous smile he offered when he saw me. "You look beautiful," he said softly, as if Vanessa weren't it standing right there, practically vibrating with curiosity. "You clean up pretty well yourself," I managed, heat rising to my cheeks. Very different from the flower market. Something like discomfort flashed across his face, but he recovered quickly. "On special occasion," he said, offering his arm. "Shall we?" After enduring Vanessa's exaggerated winks and mouthed, "Call me!" Behind Joseph's back, we made our escape to his car, not the beat-up truck I remembered, but a sleek black Audi that gleamed under the streetlights. I raised an eyebrow. Gardening must pay better than I thought. Joseph's laugh sounded forced. It borrowed for the occasion. The restaurant was everything Vanessa had implied: intimate lighting, white tablecloths, waiters who seemed to materialize exactly when needed and disappear when they weren't hers. Joseph ordered wine with the confidence of someone who knew exactly what he was doing, and we fell into easy conversation about books, San Antonio's hidden gems, and the merits of rescue pets versus purebreds. It wasn't tea until dessert, a shared chocolate soufflé that made me close my eyes in bliss with the first bite, that I finally gathered the courage to address the elephant in the room. "Joseph," I said carefully, setting down my spoon, "can I ask you something?" His eyes met mine, wary but open. "Anything." "Who are you, really?" I held up a hand when he started to respond. "And please, Don, to say just a gardener. Not when you know wine like a sommelier. Drive an Audi to a restaurant that probably costs more than my monthly rent, and have men in expensive suits calling you for meetings." Joseph was silent for a long moment, studying my face as if searching for something. Whatever he found seemed to satisfy him, because he sighed, shoulders dropping slightly. "I wasn't entirely truthful with you," he admitted. "But I wasn't entirely lying either." That guessed cryptic. He smiled faintly. "And I do work with plants. I love gardening. Patch is real, and he does snore like a freight train." He paused. "But I also run a company, Wilson Botanicals." The name hit me like a physical blow. Wilson Botanicals wasn't just a company. It was the company in natural skincare, a multi-million-dollar empire known for its ethically sourced ingredients and revolutionary formulations. "You read Joseph Wilson," I repeated, the pieces clicking into place. "The CEO of Wilson Botanicals, the company that Ace been trying to buy out Glow Cosmetics for the past year." He winced. "Guilty. The company I criticized when you gave me a ride." My mind raced back to that rainy day, his reaction when I mentioned Glow. "You knew who I was that day in your truck, didn't you?" "Not at first," he said quickly. "I swear, but when you mentioned working at Glow and the allergic reactions, yes, I connected the dots. Your report was actually correct, by the way. Their new line has been causing problems." I pushed back from the table, anger and confusion battling for dominance. "So what was this? Research? Keep your enemies close kind of thing?" "No." His response was immediate, emphatic. "Linda, I gave you a ride because it was raining and you needed help. I asked you to dinner because I haven't been able to stop thinking about you since that day in the truck." He reached across the table, not quite touching my hand. "Being with you, just talking, without the weight of my position, my name, it felt real in a way few things in my life do." The sincerity in his eyes made my anger falter, but suspicion remained. Why the disguise? The truck, the gardening, clothes. Joseph's expression shifted to something more vulnerable. "It is not a disguise, it is an escape. The truck was my father's gardening was his passion before he built the company. When things get overwhelming, board meetings, acquisition deals, endless networking, I go back to the soil, to what matters. He hesitated. My brother thinks it ridiculous. A waste of time, but it keeps me grounded. Your brother, I echoed. The one Richard mentioned at the market? He nodded. Thomas, CEO of Wilson Holdings, our parent company. The business mind to my creative one, as he likes to remind everyone. I sat with this information, trying to reconcile the Joseph I'd come to know, thoughtful, a bit shy, passionate about plants, with the corporate titan now revealed. Outside the bubble of our table, I noticed diners at nearby tables, casting glances our way, a few even taking discreet photos with their phones. Is this why people are staring? I asked quietly. Because you famous? Joseph grimaced. In certain circles, I am sorry, I should have warned you. Does everyone in San Antonio know who you are except me? Not everyone, he said with a small smile. But enough. It's why I value my gardening time so much. Nobody looks twice at a man in dirty jeans buying flowers at a market. Or picking up stranded women in the rain, I added, still processing. He reached for my hand again, and this time I let him take it. Linda, I understand if you angry. I should have been honest from the beginning. But everything else, the conversations, the texts, the way I feel when I am with you, that's all real. More real than board meetings or business dinners. His phone buzzed insistently on the table. He glanced at it, frowning. Important CEO business? I asked, unable to keep the edge from my voice. It's Patch's dog sitter, he said, showing me the screen. Apparently he destroyed another throw pillow and is now howling at the door. He gets anxious when I'm gone too long. The mental image of a CEO rushing home to a destructive one-eyed rescue dog made me laugh despite myself. Joseph's face lit up at the sound. Does this mean I am forgiven? He asked hopefully. It means, I said slowly, that I need time to think. This is a lot to process. He nodded, signaling for the check. I understand completely. As we walked to his car, Joseph kept a respectful distance. The ride back to my apartment was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Each of us lost in thought. When he pulled up outside my building, he turned to me. For what it is worth, he said softly, meeting you that day in the rain was the best thing that happened to me in years, CEO or gardener. Before I could respond, his phone rang again, the dog sitter, presumably with more news of Patch's destruction. Joseph grimaced apologetically. Go, I said with a small smile. Your dog needs you. I climbed out of the car, but before closing the door, I leaned down. Joseph? He looked up, hope plain on his face. Next time, maybe we could just get coffee, somewhere without photographers and $100 wine. Somewhere a gardener might go. His answering smile was worth all the confusion of the evening. I'd like that very much. As his car pulled away, I stood on the sidewalk, wondering how my life had turned into the plot of a romance novel and why, despite all reason, I couldn't wait to see what the next chapter would bring. 3 cups of coffee, a sleepless night, and one intense Google deep dive later, I knew more about Joseph Wilson than I ever thought possible. Forbes profiles detailing his rise from botanical wunderkind to industry titan. Charity galas where he'd donated millions to environmental causes. A TED Talk about sustainable sourcing that had over 2 million views. And yet none of it captured the man who'd spent 30 minutes explaining the perfect conditions for growing delphiniums, his eyes alight with genuine passion. So, Vanessa demanded the next morning, ambushing me in the kitchen. Was I, right? Secret billionaire? I groaned, head in my hands. Multimillionaire, technically. CEO of Wilson Botanicals. Vanessa's coffee mug hit the counter with a clank. Holy crap, Linda. That is the company that makes that face serum I can afford. She grabbed my shoulders. Tell me everything. Was he wearing a Rolex? Did he pay with a black card? Did he offer to fly you to Paris for dessert? He is a person, Nessa, not a movie trope, as I protested, but my mind flashed to the perfectly tailored suit, the ease with which he de-ordered wine that probably cost more than my weekly paycheck. But yes, he's rich and powerful and apparently famous in business circles. And he picked you up in a beat-up truck during a rainstorm, she added with a dreamy sigh. That is some Nicholas Sparks-level meet-cute right there. I threw a kitchen towel at her. It is not funny, he lied to me. Did he, though? Vanessa challenged, dodging the towel. You said he actually does garden, and he really does have a one-eyed dog. He just omitted the CEO part. That is a pretty big omission, I muttered, though privately I understood his reasoning better after reading about his public life. The endless scrutiny, the social climbers, the business sharks. No wonder he cherished anonymity when he could find it. My phone chirped with a text. Joseph. Good morning. I hope you slept well. I've been thinking about what you said about coffee. There's a place called Rosella S off Broadway. Small, quiet, no photographers. They have an excellent lavender latte. Would 2 p.m. work for you? Vanessa read the text over my shoulder, then grabbed my phone and typed a response before I could stop her. See you at 2. Vanessa! I snatched my phone back. I haven't decided if I am going yet. She rolled her eyes. Yes, you have. You've been obsessively researching him all night. You were going. She was right, of course. By 1:55 p.m., I was walking into Rosella S Coffee, a cozy spot tucked between vintage bookstores and artisan shops. True to Joseph S' word, it was quiet and unassuming. The kind of place where people came to read or work, not to be seen. He was already there, sitting at a corner table, dressed in jeans and a simple blue button-down that matched his eyes. No suit, no tie, no visible trappings of wealth, just Joseph, looking slightly nervous as he spotted me at the door. You came, he said, rising as I approached. I came, I confirmed, sliding into the seat across from him. Nice place. One of my favorites, he said. Patch and I come here sometimes on Sunday mornings. They have a dog-friendly patio out back. The mental image of San Antonio-S business elite sipping coffee with a one-eyed pit bull made me smile despite myself. I got you a lavender latte, he added, pushing a ceramic mug toward me. But I can order you something else if you prefer. The thoughtfulness of the gesture softened something in my chest. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug, inhaling the soothing scent. This is perfect, actually. For a moment, we sat in comfortable silence, the afternoon sunlight streaming through the windows, casting warm patterns across the wooden table between us. I owe you an apology, Joseph finally said, his fingers tracing the rim of his own cup. Several, actually. I'm listening. He met my eyes directly. I am sorry I wasn't completely honest with you from the beginning. And sorry about last night. The fancy restaurant, the borrowed car. I was trying to impress you, but all I did was make things more complicated. Why did you feel the need to impress me? I asked, genuinely curious. You already, well, you know. I gestured vaguely, encompassing his entire successful existence. Joseph S. laugh was soft, self-deprecating. Because when you're used to people being impressed by your bank account or your business card, it's terrifying to meet someone who might actually see past all that. He leaned forward. The day in the rain, at the market, our text conversations, that was just me. Joseph, the guy who loves plants and has a ridiculous dog, not Joseph Wilson, CEO. And which one is real? I challenged. Both, he said simply. But the gardener is who I am. The CEO is what I do. He paused, though admittedly I do both, often simultaneously. Over the next hour, coffee turning to pastries and then to second coffees, Joseph filled in the gaps of his story. How his father had started Wilson Botanicals as a small greenhouse operation, growing medicinal herbs before expanding into natural skincare. How Joseph had inherited his father's passion for plants, but added his own scientific knowledge, developing the formulations that had transformed the company from successful to revolutionary. How his older brother Thomas had taken over the financial side, pushing for explosive growth, while Joseph focused on product integrity. "That's why I still garden," he explained. "It keeps me connected to what matters, the plants themselves, the soil, the process, the actual living things behind all the spreadsheets and marketing campaigns." "And the disguise," I pressed. "The truck, the work clothes." Joseph ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I was beginning to recognize as a sign of vulnerability. "And after my father died 3 years ago, the company went public. Suddenly I wasn't just Joseph Wilson, botanist. I was Joseph Wilson, eligible bachelor CEO with a net worth that attracted a certain type of attention." His expression soured slightly. "Dating became a minefield of ulterior motives, so I retreated, I guess. Found spaces where I could just be myself." "Like farmers' markets," I supplied. "Like farmers' markets," he agreed with a smile, "and rainy bus stops." I took a sip of my now lukewarm coffee, studying him. "So what happens now? We just date like normal people? While you're secretly running a multi-million-dollar corporation and I am serving lattes at Coffee Corner?" "If that is what you want," he said cautiously. "Though I should warn you, normal might be a stretch. There will be events I have to attend, business dinners, the occasional photo in a business magazine. And your brother, the one Richard mentioned, I get the feeling he wouldn't approve of you dating a barista who got fired for whistleblowing." Joseph's expression darkened slightly. "Thomas has opinions about everything, especially my personal life, but he doesn't get a vote. And what about your board? Your shareholders? Aren't CEOs supposed to be careful about their image? Are you planning to sell company secrets to competitors?" he asked, eyebrow raised. "Only if they offer me a really good deal." I deadpanned. His laugh loosened something in my chest. "Then I think we'll be fine." He reached across the table, his hand covering mine. "Linda, I like you, the real you, the woman who quotes Thoreau and stands up for consumer safety, even when it costs her a job. I'd like to see where this goes, if you would." The warmth of his hand, the sincerity in his eyes, the simple way he laid his feelings bare. It was all so disarmingly genuine, yet questions lingered. "What if this doesn't work out?" I asked softly. "Dating a regular person is complicated enough. Dating someone with your position seems like relationship difficulty set to expert level." "Maybe," he acknowledged. "But what if it does work out? What if it's worth it?" Before I could respond, the cafe door burst open and a tall man in an immaculate suit strode in, his gaze sweeping the room before landing on our table. Even without the family resemblance, the same jawline, though his eyes were brown instead of blue, I would have known who he was from Joseph's instant tension. "Thomas," Joseph said, his voice carefully neutral. "What are you doing here?" Thomas Wilson, CEO of Wilson Holdings, elder brother and apparent tracker of siblings, stopped at our table, his assessing gaze moving from Joseph to me with undisguised curiosity. "Emergency board call in 30 minutes, he said briskly. "The Glow Cosmetics deal is falling apart. Their CEO is making noise about allergic reactions to their new line." His eyes narrowed slightly as they returned to me. "And you must be Linda Rodriguez, former marketing assistant at Glow. What a coincidence." The way he said coincidence made it clear he believed it was anything but. I felt heat rise to my cheeks, partly embarrassment, partly indignation. "Thomas," Joseph's voice held a warning, "and the car is outside," Thomas continued as if Joseph hadn't spoken. We need to go now." Joseph's jaw tightened, but he nodded once. As Thomas turned and walked back toward the door, Joseph turned to me, conflict evident in his expression. "Would I have to go?" he said, the regret in his voice genuine. "But this conversation isn't a tea over." "Looks like your real life is calling," I said, trying to keep my tone light despite the knot forming in my stomach. Thomas's implication was clear. He thought I was some kind of corporate spy, or worse, that I orchestrated meeting Joseph for some nefarious purpose. Joseph squeezed my hand. "This is real too," he said firmly. "I'll call you tonight, I promise." As he strode after his brother, I remained at the table, coffee gone cold, wondering what I'd gotten myself into, and whether any relationship, no matter how promising, was worth the complications that clearly came with Joseph Wilson's world. The next week passed in a blur of contradictions. Joseph called that night as promised, apologetic about his brother's behavior and the abrupt departure. Then came flowers delivered to the coffee shop. Not an ostentatious arrangement from some high-end florist, but a hand-picked bouquet of the same flowers we'd chosen together at the market, with a note that simply read, "Real, J." Texts became phone calls that stretched late into the night. Coffee dates between his meetings and my shifts turned into walks with Patch, who indeed had only one eye, but made up for it with boundless enthusiasm. Joseph picked me up in his personal vehicle, not the borrowed Audi, but a practical Jeep that had seen its share of garden soil and dog hair. Through it all, I struggled to reconcile the two versions of the man I was rapidly falling for. Joseph the gardener, who spent an afternoon helping me plant herbs on my tiny apartment balcony, his hands sure and gentle in the soil, and Joseph Wilson, the CEO, who occasionally answered urgent business calls and once had to reschedule our dinner because a major retailer in Japan threatened to pull out of a distribution deal. "You are overthinking this," Vanessa insisted. One evening, as I paced our living room, debating whether to accept Joseph's invitation to a charity gala the following weekend. So he has two sides to his life, don't we all? "Not like this," I argued. "My two sides are barista and unemployed marketing assistant. His are normal guy and person whose net worth could probably buy this entire apartment building." "But you like him," she pointed out, "the actual him, not the money." I couldn't deny it. I did like him, his passion for plants, his kindness, the way his eyes crinkled when he laughed, the way he listened when I talked about my marketing ideas, offering genuine feedback instead of placating nods. The gentle way he handled Patch, who'd been abused before Joseph rescued him. "His brother hates me," I said, flopping onto the couch. "He practically accused me of being a corporate spy." "So prove him wrong," Vanessa challenged. "Go to the gala, meet his stuffy business associates. Show them that Linda Rodriguez doesn't care about Joseph's bank account. She just likes his botanical knowledge." She waggled her eyebrows, suggestively. I threw a pillow at her, but her words resonated. Was I letting fear of judgment from Thomas, from Joseph's business world, even from myself, stand in the way of something that could be wonderful? The night of the gala arrived, bringing with it a wave of anxiety I hadn't experienced since job interviews. Joseph had arranged for a car to pick me up, not to show off, he had insisted, but because parking is a nightmare. And now I stood in our apartment, wearing a midnight blue dress borrowed from Vanessa's more sophisticated closet, wondering if I was making a tremendous mistake. "Stop fidgeting," Vanessa ordered, adjusting the delicate silver necklace around my throat. "You look gorgeous." "I look like I am trying too hard," I muttered, smoothing invisible wrinkles from the dress. "That's literally the point of a gala," she countered. "Everyone tries hard, even the billionaires." When the doorbell rang, I nearly jumped out of my skin. But it wasn't the driver. It was Joseph himself, standing in our doorway holding a small box and looking so devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo that my mouth went dry. "I thought I'd ride with you," he said, taking in my appearance with undisguised appreciation. "You look incredible. You clean up pretty well yourself, Mr. Wilson," I managed, trying for levity despite the butterflies in my stomach. He stepped closer, opening the box to reveal a delicate corsage, a miniature arrangement of the same flowers we'd chosen at the market, woven with tiny sprigs of greenery. "I made this," he said, suddenly looking almost shy. "Old-fashioned." "I know, but it is perfect," I whispered as he slipped it onto my wrist. The gesture was so unexpectedly tender that I felt tears threaten. In the car, Joseph sensed my nervousness, his hand finding mine in the dim light. "We don't have to stay long," he promised. "Just enough to make an appearance, donate to a good cause, and maybe shock Thomas into speechlessness." I laughed, despite myself. "Is that even possible?" "Only one way to find out," he said with a grin. The hotel ballroom was a sea of designer gowns, tuxedos, and jewelry that probably cost more than my yearly salary. As we entered, conversations paused, heads turned, and whispers followed. Joseph E.'s hand tightened on the small of my back, a reassuring pressure. "Ignore them," he murmured. "Half of them are just trying to figure out if you're a celebrity they should recognize." The first hour passed in a blur of introductions, board members, business partners, charity organizers. Joseph never left my side, his pride evident as he introduced me to each person. Most were polite, if reserved. A few were genuinely warm, particularly an older woman named Eleanor, who turned out to be Joseph's godmother and who whispered, "He hasn't smiled like this in years, dear," when Joseph stepped away to get us drinks. I was just beginning to relax when Thomas appeared, impeccably dressed and wearing an expression that could curdle milk. "Joseph," he acknowledged, then turned to me with a barely civil nod. "Miss Rodriguez." "Mr. Wilson," I replied, matching his formality. "Lovely event." Indeed, supporting children's hospitals has always been a Wilson family priority. His emphasis on family wasn't subtle. "I am surprised Joseph brought a guest tonight. He usually attends these functions solo." "I am full of surprises lately," Joseph said lightly, returning with 2 champagne flutes, "though supporting worthy causes isn't one of them." He handed me a glass, his eyes communicating silent support. Thomas's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Speaking of causes, several board members are eager to discuss the Glow Cosmetics situation, particularly in light of recent developments." The implication was clear. My presence, the former Glow employee now dating the CEO of their competitor, was raising eyebrows. "Linda isn't here to discuss business, Thomas," Joseph said, his tone hardening. "And neither am I, for that matter. Tonight is about the children's hospital." "Of course," Thomas replied smoothly, "though it's interesting how some people manage to be in exactly the right place at the right time." I felt heat rise to my cheeks, anger displacing nervousness. If you re-implying what I think you are, Mr. Wilson, let me clarify something," I said, keeping my voice level. "I lost my job at Glow for telling the truth about a product that was hurting people. I met your brother because it was raining, and I was stranded, and I am dating him despite his position, not because of it." Thomas raised an eyebrow, seemingly taken aback by my directness. "Bold claims. Accurate ones," I countered. Joseph's arms slipped around my waist, his expression a mix of pride and concern. "Linda is not looking for your approval, Thomas. Neither am I." "Clearly," his brother replied dryly, "but as CEO of our parent company." "You manage the business," Joseph interrupted, "not my personal life." A tense silence fell between the brothers, years of unspoken conflict simmering beneath the surface. I took a sip of champagne to calm my racing heart, wishing I'd insisted on a quiet dinner instead of this public showdown. "Your father would be concerned," Thomas said finally, his voice low enough that only we could hear. "About the company's reputation, about appearances." Something flashed in Joseph Guest's eyes: hurt, anger, determination. "Dad would have liked Linda," he said firmly. "He valued honesty and integrity above all else. Or have you forgotten that part of his legacy? While you've been counting stock options," Thomas' jaw tightened. Before he could respond, an elegant older woman approached, placing a restraining hand on his arm. "There you are, Thomas. The hospital director is looking for you." She smiled warmly at Joseph and me. "And you must be Linda." Catherine. Wilson, Thomas and Joseph's mother. I nearly choked on my champagne. Joseph had mentioned his mother lived primarily in Europe these days. He hadn't mentioned she'd be at the gala. "Mrs. Wilson," I managed, accepting her extended hand. "It is lovely to meet you." Catherine, please," she insisted, her keen eyes, the same striking blue as Joseph's, assessing me with undisguised interest. "Joseph has told me so much about you. I understand you have quite the eye for product formulations." I blinked, in surprise. Yes, I suppose, though my marketing background gives me a different perspective than most scientists." "Precisely what this industry needs," she said approvingly. "Fresh perspectives." She turned to her sons. "Now, boys, this is hardly the place for whatever fraternal dispute you having. Thomas, the director is waiting. Joseph, perhaps you could show Linda the terrace. The view of the river is lovely, this time of evening." Her tone brooked no argument. Thomas departed with a stiff nod, and Joseph led me toward glass doors that opened onto a spacious terrace overlooking the San Antonio River. "I'm sorry about that," he said once we were alone, the night air cool against my flushed skin. Now, Thomas has always been protective of the family business, sometimes at the expense of actual family. "Your mother seems nice," I offered, still processing the encounter. Joseph laughed, some of the tension leaving his shoulders. "Mum has always been the peacekeeper. Dad was the visionary. Thomas is the businessman, and I'm the heart," I finished for him. "The one who remembers why it all matters in the first place." He looked at me with such naked emotion that my breath caught. "How do you do that?" he asked softly. "Do what?" "See me so clearly. The real me, not just the CEO or the brother or the public figure." I stepped closer, drawn by the vulnerability in his eyes. Maybe because that's all I've ever seen from that first day in the rain. Just Joseph. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb tracing my lower lip. "Just Joseph," he echoed. "The man who fell for you the moment you quoted Thoreau while dripping rainwater all over his truck." "That early?" I teased, though my heart was pounding. "That early," he confirmed, though I tried to deny it. CEOs are supposed to be rational after all. And are you being rational right now? His eyes darkened as they dropped to my lips. Not even slightly. When he kissed me, the gala, Thomas' accusations, and the weight of Joseph's public persona all faded away. There was only us. The night air perfumed with riverside jasmine, and the sensation of finally finding something genuine in a world of appearances. Later, as we swayed together on the dance floor, Joseph whispered against my hair, "Move in with me." I pulled back, startled. "What? Too soon?" His expression was both hopeful and uncertain. I am tired of pretending, of being one person in the boardroom and another with you. I want all of my life to be real, Linda, and you make me real." "Joseph, we've been dating for a couple of weeks," I pointed out, though my heart raced at the sincerity in his eyes. I know, it's crazy, he admitted. But so was getting into a stranger-s truck in the rain. So was falling for a woman who challenged everything about my carefully constructed world. He took a deep breath. I am not asking for forever. Not, yet just a chance to live without the divisions. No more CEO versus gardener, just us figuring it out together. And as the music swelled around us, I thought about the barriers I deconstructed in my own life, the professional setbacks, the cautious approach to relationships, the fear of taking risks. And I thought about the man before me, who had everything society deemed valuable, yet found his greatest joy in soil-covered hands and rescue dogs and moments of genuine connection. On one condition, I said finally, name it. We keep my apartment for now as a backup plan, and Vanessa gets visitation rights to Patch. His laugh, free, joyous, real, drew curious glances from nearby dancers. Done, he agreed, spinning me in a graceful turn. Anything else? Yes, I said, suddenly serious. No more secrets, no more separate lives, just us, the real us, figuring it out together. Just us, he promised, sealing the words with a kiss that felt like the beginning of something true, something lasting, something wonderfully, perfectly real. Epilogue. Full bloom. 6 months later. You are sure about this? Joseph asked, watching me pack the last of my marketing textbooks into a cardboard box. It's not too late to change your mind. I straightened, brushing dust from my hands. Getting cold feet, Mr. Wilson? Never, he said, crossing the room to pull me against him, just making sure you were not having second thoughts about giving up your safety net. The safety net in question was my apartment with Vanessa, kept these past 6 months as we navigated the transition from new couple to something deeper, more permanent. After half a year of splitting time between Joseph's Riverside home and my small apartment, we'd finally decided to make the arrangement official. The only thing I'll miss is having Vanessa as a built-in taste tester for your cooking experiments, I teased, leaning into his embrace. A sacrifice I am willing to make, he murmured against my hair. Life with Joseph had been a series of beautiful surprises. True to his word, he'd torn down the walls between his worlds, bringing me into every aspect of his life while honoring my independence. I'd started consulting for Wilson Botanicals, not in an official capacity, but offering my marketing perspective on new product lines, particularly those aimed at consumers with sensitive skin. Thomas had remained skeptical at first, but a breakthrough idea helped facilitate with an organic sunscreen formula had reluctantly won his respect. Catherine, who now insisted I call her Kathy, had become an unexpected ally, her European directness cutting through corporate politics whenever they threatened to overshadow what truly mattered, creating products that helped people while respecting the environment. Did you tell Patch we were making it official? I asked, glancing at the one-eyed pit bull snoring contentedly on my now bare mattress. He'd become as much my dog as Joseph Dess, his initial wariness giving way to such devoted affection that Vanessa joked he'd forgotten which of us had actually rescued him. I did, Joseph confirmed. He expressed his approval by destroying only one of my shoes instead of the usual 2. I laughed, turning in his arms to face him. High praise indeed. The highest, he agreed, his expression growing serious. Though not as high as what I am about to ask you. Something in his tone made my heart skip. Joseph. He reached into his pocket, then dropped to one knee, and suddenly the empty apartment, the space I'd once considered my safety net, my backup plan, became the most important room in the world. Linda Rodriguez, he said, his voice steady despite the vulnerability in his eyes. I've known since that rainy day when you quoted Thoreau in my truck that you were someone special, someone who could see past titles and bank accounts to the person underneath, Someone who values honesty and integrity above appearances. He opened the small velvet box in his hand, revealing not the ostentatious diamond I might have expected from a CEO, but a delicate ring featuring a blue sapphire, surrounded by tiny white flowers crafted in silver. "The sapphire matches your eyes," I whispered, tears threatening. "And the flowers are delphiniums, the ones we chose together at the market," he confirmed. "I had it custom-made by an artisan jeweler we met at the farmer's market last month." Of course he had, because Joseph Wilson, for all his success and wealth, understood that true value lay in meaning, not price tags. "I don't want to be the gardener or the CEO anymore," he continued. "I just want to be yours forever. Will you marry me, Linda?" As afternoon sunlight streamed through the windows of the apartment I was leaving behind, I looked at the man kneeling before me, the man who had given me rides in rainstorms and lessons about flowers, who had introduced me to his mother, and his board of directors with equal pride, who had merged his worlds because he couldn't bear to be anything but authentic with me. "Yes," I said, my voice breaking on the word. "Yes, I'll marry you, Joseph." Later, as we carried the last of my boxes to his Jeep, not the fancy Audi, never the Audi, Patch bounding excitedly ahead of us, Joseph paused. "You know," he said thoughtfully, "I never did thank you." "For what?" "For getting into my truck that day. For taking a chance on a stranger." His smile was soft, tinged with wonder. "For helping me find the realest version of myself." I leaned up to kiss him, there on the sidewalk in front of my old apartment building, not caring who might see. "I think we found each other," I corrected. "And the rest? Well, the rest is our story." As we drove away, CEO, former marketing assistant and one-eyed rescue dog, I thought about how life's most meaningful journeys often begin with the simplest of choices, stepping into a stranger's truck during a rainstorm, choosing honesty over pretense, valuing substance over appearance. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, those choices lead you home, to a love as authentic as it is unexpected, to a future blooming with possibilities, to the truest version of yourself you've ever known. The end.